And welcome back to the True Patriot podcast, folks. Interview series. We are up here again, and we have another awesome guest with us. We have joining us here on this episode, Mr. Jeremy Pierce of the Colorado Kayak Fishing Club, who is the newly elected tournament director for the bass side of things. They have their multi-species and bass. Mr. Pierce, Jeremy is our new tournament director for the coming season. Jeremy, thank you for joining us, man.
Thank you, Gene. Hopefully you're having a great evening. Got our first snow here in the spring, so
I know, right?
Definitely the main part of the season starting to wind down.
I may have uttered an expletive when I went out onto my porch and saw the rain turn into snow, man. I'm like, no, not ready.
I've still got quite a few trips down to Pueblo in me, so I've fished well on into the winter here. It could be a good bite. It could be a little slow, but you could definitely catch some big fish still, even when the snow's falling around you. So,
yep, isn't that the truth? Well, and I was happy to find out. I was under the understanding, because of a couple lakes up here that literally shut down to all traffic. Yes. They don't let us on them. I was thinking all of Colorado that was that way, and I'm like, dude, if that's the case, that means in Minnesota I could be on the water longer than I can in Colorado. And it's like, I get it, reservoir versus natural lakes, but still, it was like, no, I'm not ready to give up just yet. I went out to Quincy yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, I think it was yesterday. I went to Quincy with Lucas, and yes, it's nice that I found a few of the lakes that are still open out there.
Yeah, a few of them, when they pull their docks out and they can no longer safely launch their patrol boats, basically, they shut the lakes down. But Pueblo, Horsetooth, and I think it's maybe Carter Lake, along the kind of like right on the range up there, those three definitely stay open year round. And Pueblo, since I've been here for 8.5 years. I've only seen Pueblo kind of close down with ice one time, and that was 2 years ago.
Right.
So you can usually get on there at some point in time.
That's awesome. Because like you said, I mean, there's still fishing there. Still, it can be done for sure. There's a reason the ice fishermen, love the winter so much. That's just not my game. But for sure. So yeah, man. So let's talk about it here. Let's introduce who you are, what it is you do, what got you into kayak fishing, man.
So again, Jeremy Pierce, I've been in the Air Force active duty for 18 years now. I actually just hit 18 last month in September.
Nice.
I've been here. That brought me here to Colorado. I can't thank the Air Force enough for that assignment. I've managed to kind of wheel and deal, move around offices long enough to stay here. I think I'll be able to finish off the next 2 years here.
That's awesome.
We moved into a house in Banning Lewis Ranch in Colorado Springs, and we absolutely love the area. The kids are in a great school, so we love Colorado, and the fishing's pretty good. I'm not going to complain. It'd be nice to be a little closer to a lake. It's about an hour to an hour and a half drive to a good chunk of water from here. But honestly, we wouldn't trade it. We absolutely love it.
That's awesome.
But like I said, I've been in the Air Force for 18 years. I'm originally from Florida. My very first memory is fishing with my grandmother on a dock that was by a family boat ramp that we owned the property for.
Nice.
And I mean, we'd sit there on the dock, throwing corn on a little hook and throwing it out for pinfish and mullet.
Yep.
I tell you, a very underrated fish to get on a hook, if you can get them, is silver mullet down off the Gulf Coast.
Really?
They fight. They fight almost like bonefish. They jump.
Wow.
They're honestly one of the best fish that you can catch. And I mean, we used to catch them on a cane pole, and it was a blast.
Wow.
We'd get it out in front of them with little corn kernels and maybe a little bit of dough on the hook, and they'd bite it, and it was a good time.
Weren't those some days, man? I taking the Wonder White bread or whatever, and you make the little dough balls, and literally, a can of corn. You go drop back in those days, you could spend 30 cents and get a can of corn at the grocery store. And you your hook would have like this smorgasbord, sitting on it, and just wang that bad boy out there.
I loved it. And, growing up in Florida, I was constantly in boats. We used to take my uncle's aquasport out into the Gulf on days where the waves were almost as big as his boat was. Those are times, wasn't quite as careful as I am now. But growing up in
fatherhood
boats,
does that.
Fatherhood and injuries. That's
true. We're not as bouncy as we used to be.
But I mean, I grew up around boats, taking his boat out. I was a deckhand in high school for a big charter boat. It was a 36-foot Hatteras that we used to go out on a lot of king and tuna trips. So I loved being in boats. I had an aluminum boat while I was stationed in Nebraska. Ended up kind of coincidentally getting into kayaks because I was working part-time, active duty, working part-time at a Cabela's. And my manager made me return this kayak that a dude had for a month and just beat up. And it was a little 9-foot sit-in motion. It wasn't set up for fishing or anything. And I was like, I'll do this transaction on one condition. And that's you let me have first dibs on it when it goes to the bargain cave. And he's like, you got it, because I don't want to deal with this.
I bet.
So I returned it, and I ended up being able to buy it for like $70 when it went back to the bargain cave. I tossed a little a rod holder on the front of it. I have a backpack that I had my tackle and stuff in between my feet. And then I had 2 flush mount rod holders behind me, so I could take 3 rods on it and some tackle.
Wow.
And I started using that more than my little aluminum boat. So it was just sitting in the driveway. And when I got my orders here to Colorado, my wife was like, well, the boat's just sitting. Why don't you go ahead and sell it and just use the kayak? So I did, and I got here, and I started getting onto some bigger reservoirs like Pueblo and going out to 11 Mile. And I was just undersized. So I was super nervous to take it out into deep water, because if I flipped that little sit-in, it was going to the bottom along with my gear.
Yep.
And then finally in 2018, I convinced her to let me get a Hobie with a pedal drive. Got my Outback, still rocking that same Outback. I absolutely love it. It's a
awesome.
great platform. And that's actually the year that I started with the Kayak Fishing Club. I was searching online, happened to find it. Found out that they did the tournaments and the memberships, and I was like, well, I'm not going to be competitive right now because I didn't have anything set up on it. But I was like, I'll go do a couple tournaments, meet some of the guys, see how the club is, and there's no turning back. Ever since 2018, I've been active. I've taken a couple breaks. My mom passed away last year in May, right after the very first tournament, and I was like, I'm going to do some more family time this summer. So I took a big break last year, and then this year I missed the first set of tournaments at John Martin with COVID. And then the end of the year, I thought my season was done after Trinidad in July, because I was having an ACL rebuild on my right leg. And then I managed to sneak out for one more tournament, happened to be 11 Mile. And that happened to be a great tournament. I caught a huge pike towards the end of the day. I was already in first place because of a pike. I had a big cull with a 28-inch pike. Already had a 29 on the board. And then I ended up catching, I'm guessing it was probably close to 42. If you look at some of the pictures that Matt took, where you can see the tail hanging off the board, I've got the 32-inch catch board, and his tail was fully off the board, at least a good close to 10 inches. So it was big. And it's not my PB pike as far as length goes. I caught a 48 while I was stationed in Alaska.
Wow.
But this pike at 11 Mile weighed probably 7 pounds more than that one did.
Jeez.
I mean, this thing, it took everything I could, because it's the biggest fish I've caught for my kayak. And it took everything I could to get it up onto the kayak and the net. Matt let me borrow his fish grips because I couldn't find mine. It was just a mess. And, I'm sitting here like, how am I going to measure this thing? So I actually took my first picture. Like, we're not allowed to use a restraining device on the fish, but I was like, just to get him in position and everything, I took my first picture. I've got it on my phone with the fish grips still in his mouth. And then I just real slowly removed them so that he didn't really feel it as much, and then just kept on taking pictures as the fish grips were coming out until I had one without him. It was a mess, but I mean, I absolutely love this club. Been in it since 2018. The guys, like I said, Matt came over and let me borrow his fish grips.
Yep.
You don't see that in any kind of other organization out there. It's so wholesome, and the group of guys is just phenomenal. Helping me get my kayak in and out of the truck when I'm pre-fishing because of my knee. Those kind of things. It's just super kind group of people in this club. There's no fishing forum, anything like ours, even the Facebook side of things. You never see, a lot of drama or anything in the club. It's just really awesome.
And that's important, man. Especially in the club and in the universe of social media, that's such a big deal. I can tell you, I stepped away from social media about 10 years ago, for a while, just because of the junk. And then I learned how I could actually tailor the social media a little bit more to my liking. I still get a few leak throughs like on my news feed here and there, but the more you block and hide and unfollow and report, or not report, but basically just say, do not show any more of this, the more your news feed tailors. So now my news feed is it's fishing, it's, tackle companies, it's humor, and, some sports. I follow the Broncos and Avalanche, of course, and so
I'm sorry.
hey, we're orange, we're going to ride and die, all the way through. Bronco fans got to give them some time.
I'm a Bucks fan, and this year Brady should have stayed retired.
I don't know, man. It's something's going on down there that's a little bit different, and I'm not sure. It's Denver's got its issues. I've been around football a lot in my life. I coached football for 18 years from fourth grade to high school varsity, and it's a lot deeper than what the fans think. They think it's one player this, one coach that. It's a much bigger issue that they've got, and hopefully they'll figure it out. Tampa, I'm sure Brady will find a way to fix the stuff. The guy's a mutant, and
you can't beat him towards the end of the season. What he could do is so impressive.
You're gonna have to
rallying everybody to it.
You have to lop off limbs before I'll ever bet against him. I'll tell you that right now. The guy he's built in a lab, I'm sure of it. So, well, and we were talking about this off air about the community piece within the kayak world, and the CKFC, embodies that. And it's something that a previous guest that I had on here, he and I were talking about in Colorado. We're so very grateful to have the two, tournament clubs, although CKFC is much more than just a tournament club. It's a community. It's a kayak fishing club. The Colorado Kayak Bassmasters definitely, focused on tournaments. That's what they do. It's with Bass Nation. But at CKFC, it's I know when I was brand new to the community coming in, it's where I first stopped to understand kind of the landscape of what was going on here in Colorado. I joined a canoeing and kayaking, another group. And I can honestly say that other group was filled with, a bunch of the things that we don't like to see, and that stuff. And I quickly left that group. I was like, no, we're not going to hang out there and talk that mess. But it was, that's kind of one of the cool things I found was that CKFC, encompasses from the entry level, if you want to learn it, all the way to the far more experienced, anglers that occasionally jump out and, jump in a Hobie Boss or do whatever. And it's that melding, of that melting pot there that is super, super cool.
Well, and like when some of the more senior members, when you got like the Johnny Bass, Johnny W, Alex, Dave Kuzer, Jason Duong, when CKFC was started, that's what it was for. It was to get the guys together, no matter, what level you were at, get you out on the water, have a couple guys out there with you to boost safety when you start, pressing your boundaries, and then also to give back. So, I mean, it's CKFC. Yes, we're a big club. We've got 4,500 social media members. We've got over 100 active tournament members. But first and foremost, it's a community service organization. Since I've been a part of it, we've given, thousands of dollars to Project Healing Waters Fly Fishing, Colorado Youth Outdoors, the
Boys and Girls Club.
Boys and Girls Club this year was huge. That's the 10th anniversary. They were the first ones that Johnny and them gave to the first year, 10 years ago, $750. And this year, over almost $7,500,
that's
10
awesome.
times that in 10 years.
That's huge.
And that's all through, members signing up for the tournament series, signing up for the tournaments. That's how that's raised. And it's absolutely phenomenal. I've been a part of that, giving the check to Project Healing Waters with my kids was just absolutely amazing. It's one of the coolest experiences because you go out there, you're getting better at fishing, you're testing your limits, you're seeing what you could do, but then you're also giving back to the community.
It's huge.
And it's something so special. And I think that's one of the things that kind of really helps with the club, keeping that like kind of mellow feeling in the forums and everything like that. Plus, a lot of the guys aren't afraid to kind of get in there and, if somebody's kind of being disrespectful, to educate them about, what we're trying to do and why we're trying to keep it, the way that we do. Right. And it's unlike any fishing group I've ever seen online. I've been in fishing chats since, 2004, and I've never seen anything like this group that runs, so kind and so smoothly online and social media with how things go about today. It's unheard of in the fishing community.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's, that piece there, that giving back, that service to others, that was also one of the things that attracted, us over here to the CKFC, because it was that same mentality that we had an epiphany, if you will, and we changed the model of what, working our small business from the professional angling side, what we were going to do with our time. Everybody and their aunt and uncles out there, the advertising promotion piece for equipment and tackle gear. We flipped the script on this and moved it to a advertising and promotion service for nonprofits that were working in certain sectors. We started off a little bit broader, and now we've narrowed it down. And then, obviously joining the Romans Warrior Foundation as, another part of it. But that service to others that the Colorado Kayak Fishing Club does, was something that, like I said, struck a chord with me. And it's like, okay, I got to know who these guys are more and find out, what we can do to, support, do our part to try to help, support the club and help you guys move forward. So getting a chance to interview awesome people like you, I mean, you're basically a poster, boy for the service that we do at Romans, man. I mean, active military family involved in fishing and kayak. I mean, you are the reason why we're out there, man. So before we get going any further, I know it's maybe coined and said too much, but sincerely and honestly from everyone at Romans, thank you for your service to you and your family, for everything you guys do for us out here to make it so goofballs like me can run this kind of stuff and stay out here. We appreciate it.
And thank you for the support. It's, especially being in the military, and, my dad was active Army, medically retired, and seeing like what he's gone through and stuff as a war veteran, groups that have started coming together to support veterans and things like that. It's so important, especially, the country's been in some kind of conflict since everybody says 2001, but honestly, right before that, we were doing a lot of stuff in the 90s, and we've got guys that have been dealing with a lot of things since then. Plus, we've got our veterans that paved the way during the Gulf War, on back to Vietnam and stuff. Excellent generations. We've still got World War II vets that are just now starting to talk about some of their experiences, and people don't know what to do to help a lot of these guys. So having organizations like Romans, Project Healing Waters, things like that, it's so amazing to see all these groups starting to really come together to help out veterans and our active duty members. I absolutely love, a lot of the things that people are doing now.
Well, and, there's a part of you that, as not a veteran myself, just as a citizen, someone who considers themselves an actual patriot, to the people, not a government per se, but a patriot to the men and women that have sacrificed so much for what we have here. There's a part of you that says, I wish we didn't have to do this. Somebody else should have been taking care of this, but it is an honor to do so. You know what I mean? And that's when recreational therapy has gathered so much ground, nowadays, and it's backed with medical science. They may not have all the information yet, but they absolutely know. They no longer call it alternative. It's now considered complementary therapy. It's a real deal, and getting outdoors, mind you, the science on it, there's a lot that goes into, you're looking for something with a focus point, something that helps them focus to this with an objective. And there's a deeper science to it. Bottom line is go fishing. You know what I mean? Just get out, enjoy the outdoors, take it in. And kayaks, man, they offer something that other fishing just can't offer. You and I have been there. We've been in the boats. We've seen the other kind. And there's a reason that we are so hell-bent on loving being in a kayak.
And I mean, I've got a $3,000 kayak with $1,000 fish finder, but there's still something connecting you to the water.
Absolutely.
That reminds you of the days where guys were just in a dugout canoe out there on the water with a stick and line or setting nets. It gets you back to kind of the root of things. And, we go out there in our tournaments and stuff like that, and we go a little crazy sometimes. But when you get out there in a kayak and you're just exploring new waters, trying new methods of fishing, there's so many things and little facets to it that connects you back to a real rudimentary version of what humanity was a long time ago, when things were so simple, disconnecting from it And it's a special time when you get out there. And, my wife, she doesn't even fish, but she absolutely loves going out there and getting out in the kayaks in the water. And especially here in Colorado, the lakes are so beautiful. And, I've taken several friends out there that have never kayaked, they've never boated, and they've bought kayaks, they've bought stand-up paddle boards and stuff right afterwards, because they're like, they love the simplicity of it. They love, how close you are to the lake, and just what it really represents. It's quiet, it's peaceful. And then we go out there and we wreck it, spending $10,000 on a kayak and fishing gear and tournaments. But just when you get out there and you strip everything down to the basics of it, though, it's absolutely awesome. I may own a power boat again in the future, but I will never be off my kayak for an extended period of time. I absolutely love it.
Well, and I think you can, agree or disagree with me on this, but one of the other pieces about our community that I have found is that it does tend to be more conservation driven.
Yep.
We pride ourselves on the fact that we have very little, even in the tournament side, very little impact on the fisheries that we're at. Our catch photo release system is something that apparently baffles a whole other sector of the fishing industry, because they're not sure how they can do this. And it's like, bro, we've got enough technology nowadays that,
they're starting to get a little bit closer. You've got the MLF, who's got the catchway release style. The biggest issue with them is being able to have the marshals on board with them that can handle that. For us doing the links, we've got, the standards of measure that we use. That's why we as a club use catch. As of next year, that's one of the things, starting next year, catch is it. That's the only board that we're using, because their standard of measure is the best in the industry right now. And Duke Westcamp and his team at Catch are absolutely fabulous. And what they've done is made boards that are affordable, almost indestructible. And their measure is great. It's very hard to do anything with a catch board that can make your stuff illegitimate. Plain and simple.
And all the national trails, they've pretty much standardized to that too. They don't allow any measuring device. It's catch across the board. So we're all measuring on the same. So, in that whole piece, I've seen things, take place on the water with kayak anglers that I absolutely 100% believe in. When you go by and you see like a floating bait deal or whatever, even in the boat, that's literally, in my bass boat days, I will admit, that's about the only time the net ever came out, because I most time was fishing with braid, in the big thick weeds. So I never really worried about a net. I always boat flipped everything unless it was really big, then I lipped it. But in the kayak now, I will catch things, from time to time on the water, and it's boom. And literally behind the battery in the back of the kayak is a little spot back there that's free. And that's where, if I catch fishing line, I've watched other guys do this where, if you snag up on some fishing line, I stopped in the middle of a tournament to get this line out of there, because it's just dangerous for everything out there. And I've seen other guys do the same, and it makes me feel proud to be a part, of that community out there. Have you found the same?
I've definitely found the same. I constantly, in between my seat and my, I've got a Flambeau Tough Crate. There's a little area in my tank well, and I'm constantly, floating trash. I'm right there on the water. You see everything. So floating trash, debris, line. When I get tangled in somebody else's line, I'm trying to get as much of theirs as I can that they just left. But then also we've had members of our club stop in the middle of tournaments to go out of their way to go help people, especially, you go to a lake like Horsetooth, the paddle boarders. I've done it too. 2 years ago at Horsetooth, I stopped what I was doing because there were some paddle boarders that were starting to get pushed out by the wind and they were struggling. I went over there, handed them my anchor line, and I pulled them in. It took 10 minutes out of my tournament. I was on a hot smallie bite. I don't care. I'm more worried about the fact that they were, having trouble.
That's right.
Being on the water is my, it's my safe place. It's my, that's where I anchor myself, literally, like, boat on the water is where I anchor myself. That's what I care about. So making sure that people are safe out there, making sure that the water's, cleaner than I left it, those kind of things are important to me. And you see, it's so important to a lot of the other people in our club. Like I said, CKFC, it's a service group. It's got a lot of people with the same kind of like-mindedness in it, and a lot of guys even across the country. It's a nicer way of doing things than I've seen in a lot of other different types of boating and fishing events.
Yep, for sure, for sure. So now let's talk about your role here. You are the tournament director. That means what to those that are unfamiliar with that?
So we're the poor guys that get to schedule everything. So we sit down. We as a board, I don't do it in a vacuum. We don't try to single-handedly or single-mindedly come up with anything. So we sat down as a board, virtually, of course, through Facebook, because we're kind of spread all over the Front Range. And we talked about it. We're looking at, best time of years to hit different bodies of water. We're looking at trying to change a few things up, tweak things from each year to year, to see what we could do to have the best tournament season, to get people out there on the water and not just have a good time in the tournaments, but actually make sure that people have the ability to hopefully go out there and, catch a limit, be competitive, yep. Whether they're a brand new person in the kayak scene, like I was in the tournaments in 2018, to a seasoned veteran, like hopefully I will be next year. So
right.
It's one of those cases where, we're sitting down coming up, and then also, part of my job, and Justin Collins, who's the multi-species director, deconflicting things as we can with other organizations. And then we also go through, we're a KBF affiliate, so we use their insurance. So we go through and we work with KBF to get their insurance to cover all of our events. And then we present that to the lake managers, and we apply for special event passes and permits, pay our fees and stuff like that we've got to do. And then that's how we get our tournament schedule.
Yeah. And it's, you went through it nice systematically there, but it is a lot more entailed than what people realize. Yeah. There's so much in the logistics side of setting these events up. There's always the armchair quarterbacks that, well, why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing that? It's like, always appreciate the feedback, but it was one of those things I learned early on that, I'm going to trust the fact that these guys weighed out everything that was in front of them, and so, yeah, it's definitely kudos to you, man. And to the entire board for taking the time to put that schedule together. Cause it looks like a really, really fun schedule here that you guys have lined up for next year. I've got it here in front of me.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're going to be hitting just the names of these. John Martin, that's a big place way down south. Pueblo, arguably one of the best fisheries in the state. Trinidad, that one a little schizophrenic, but can be pretty hot, down there. Horsetooth, that's the tooth. And of course, Boyd, the battle between Ogre and Ogre Slayer at Boyd, always takes place up there. But yeah, man, that's an awesome deal. John Martin in April, what was the philosophy behind that?
So one of the biggest things here that we face are the drawdowns because of the water rights that we've got with this, all of our neighboring states. So on the Arkansas River drainage, once you start getting into the spring and the summer, Kansas and downriver are taking a ton of water out of our reservoir. So you see what the water level is on Pueblo right now. Yep. It's a shell of what it was back in April. So one of the biggest things with John Martin is we've hit that one, a couple times in recent years, and we ended up hitting it right after drawdowns. And we've had guys that have gone and pre-fished and had amazing bags out there. And then we get to our tournament after a drawdown, and what they were fishing is out of the water, literally.
Right.
So we're trying to hit it as early as we can before, they start the crop watering and stuff like that in the spring. Getting a lot of melt in there over the winter, and we're hoping that the water levels will be peak, and we'll have a lot of brush and stuff like that along the shorelines that some of the bass will be holding in. So that's the big focus that we've got with the April 15th at John Martin. And then our guys had a sleigh fest in the multi-species at John Martin this year. They were catching some really big walleye, really big wipers. They had a really good time. So we're hoping, hitting John Martin that early in April. We in Colorado, you're always gambling with the weather.
Right.
No matter what you do, when you start going into the springtime, you're playing with fate at that point.
Yes, sir.
But we're really hoping we hit a solid window. I spent a lot of time on like historic weather sites and stuff like that, looking up windows in April and what lakes we could possibly hit. Because a few years back we did a Boyd tournament in April, And the night before, we had 4 inches of snow.
Oh my gracious.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. And then we've had times where we've gone to go to Pueblo for our first tournament of the year, and either had to have weather cancellations, weather delays. We've had severe cold fronts run through. So, any lake we're going to hit, we're going to run into those issues, but we're hoping with John Martin that hitting it before that drawdown will have a good tournament.
And one of the big things we deal with out here, especially in most recent years, is the wind.
Yeah.
In boat tournaments, you pay attention to the wind. It kind of changes your game plan a little bit. In a kayak world, dude, we're not talking about changing the game plan. It just becomes just flat out life threatening at some point, especially when you're talking, 50 degree, you shoot even 60 degree water, man. That's nothing to play with if you're trying to make a crossing or something, and those rollers start kicking. I know your Hobie, that Outback handles big water well. I know my Unlimited handles it well, but even having said that, anytime the rollers start getting big, it's like I'm hugging the shore. So in case something does happen, first things first, get your butt to shore, get out of there. But yeah, so we had, I think last year on the CKB side, and then the All-American, we also had a couple delays there. CKB, we had to reschedule. And so, yeah, it's going to be part of it.
And that's the biggest thing. I mean, we've got paddlers in our tournaments that are in, several different models of kayaks. Not everybody's in a Hobie or, New Canoe Unlimited or Pro Anglers, Native, Slayer Maxes, all the big ones. So that's one of the things that we as tournament directors have to take into account, not only for the scheduling, but also, I'm sorry if at some point during the season, but you might lose a camping reservation because I've got to, wave the red flag and say, no, we're not going to do this weekend because, even though you may be capable to do that, there's somebody else that, hey, their health is more important than your bass limit.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the big things that we have to take into account.
And that's so awesome that you as a director get that, man, that, I'm going to shoot very unpolitically correct here and be honest with this, because I've run in these crowds a lot, especially coming from the North and into the Midwest. There's this, macho, machismo. I'm an angler, salty dog type thing. Shut up. Safety, man. No fish. I don't care who you are, what you do. No fish or tournament is ever worth putting yourself in, a really bad situation. We can come back around. We can work, like you said, we can figure out a camping reservation. We'll iron it out, it just becomes so that's awesome. You as a tournament director, you are erring towards that side. They're in good hands, in my opinion, going into there. One of the things I actually did want to it's a little bit off topic a little bit, but it's on the same subject here. So cold water, kayak fishing. Yep. I wanted to bounce this off someone, because I've got an idea I'm working on here, and that I'm going to see how this works out and pans out. But so let's say we're going out and it's, 40, 50 degree water. This is some dangerous water when we're talking 40 degree water. You don't have a long time before hypothermia is going to start kicking in. If all you're doing is going out in a hoodie and some sweats and bundling up in your winter gear, you're basically a big sponge anchor waiting to happen if you go in the water. Obviously the PFD is the critical lifeline there. But even that starts to get a little tricky with a PFD when you're talking boots filling up with water. Yep. So the mentality is dry suit, right? I see these kayak dry suits everywhere. But dude, they're like $1,000. This kind of puts it out of the reach of a lot of people here. Have you ever heard of anyone using in the ice fishing world, which I'm not an ice fisherman at all, but I come from the land,
bibs, right?
Yes, the flotation. Now they're not rated PFD Coast Guard as a flotation device, but what my thought was, put on some of that ice armor. Clam has, some of the best stuff out there. You throw on a full set of ice armor with a PFD. Seems to me that, number one, you're going to be nice and toasty warm. Number two, if you do go in the water, you've just kind of hedged your bets that you're going to be able to get to shore. Unless you're way the heck out there, but you've increased your chances, with that flotation piece. Is that a thing? Has anybody ever tried that?
I've heard of a few people doing it. The big thing there is the bulk. Some of those, the ice armor suits and clams and stuff like that, some of those can get kind of bulky. You know, I work maintenance out on a flight line wearing bibs and big jackets. I was stationed in Alaska. So, you know, you kind of learn the limitations of what you could do in some of those. And for me personally, pedaling a kayak in some of those bibs is not something that I'm necessarily looking forward to doing.
Right.
So for me, I typically, I do smaller layers, you know, real good underlayer, then, you know, usually like a sweatpant or something like that, usually fleece. And then on top of that, I put my Gore-Tex pants. My Gore-Tex pants that I've got from the military are some of my favorite outer layers for when it gets cold, because they've got some, you know, water resistance. They've got buckles down on the lower part so they don't take in water as fast.
Nice.
And they also, they shed water quickly off of them. So those are typically what I'm wearing when it's cold. And then in my front hatch, I've always got a dry bag with a towel, a emergency blanket, and then a change of clothes.
Yep.
Because of course I haven't spent the $1,000 yet on a dry suit. I know a couple guys that have. I just haven't made it there yet. My wife has talked about it. Maybe for Christmas, who knows?
Right.
But for me, that biggest thing is just, you know, responsible layering, making sure that people know where you're going to be at. And then also I find myself staying a lot closer to shore. I'll still get into deep water, but I stay close to shore. That real, like, you know, I find some of those ledge areas and stuff like that I can fish that are pretty close into shore, that are, you know, deeper water, because those fish are going to find deeper spots when it's that cold.
Yeah.
But I just try to stay a little closer to shore. That way I can get the kayak into a safe spot, and then, you know, get out of those wet clothes, get changed, whatever I got to do to start getting warm again. I've had a couple close calls in the winter. I've been really lucky, you know, minding, you know, some of the capabilities and things like that of both myself and my kayak, but also making sure that either, you know, friends know where I'm at, the wife knows where I'm at, being within earshot of other people, things like that, just to try to hedge those, any of those little things that I can.
Goes a long way.
Yep.
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah. And that's, you know, I'm always looking for that affordable piece. I mean, obviously I like having the right gear, the right tool for the right job. Right. But it's always a matter of, you know, one of the things I learned on the kayak side of things is that everything is very personal. You make, you know, no two kayaks, regardless of model, ever, and, you know, end up looking identical, just because it's a very personal thing for you, that you build it to your, you know, liking, your style, your preferences or whatever. And so I started thinking I have a connection with Clam in that All-Terrain Tackle and Blackfish, who I've been with for years. My longest running sponsor is All-Terrain Tackle. Yeah. They're owned by Clam Outdoors. Okay. Clam owns the whole thing. I just have never really utilized any of that, just because I'm not an ice guy. You know, ice time, I got fuzzy bunny slippers on and I'm doing a ton of map study or a podcast. You know what I mean? So that's my winter time, you know, type deal where, but then I started thinking, well, you know, there might be, you know, something to be said for this. And not saying it's going to keep you 100% dry, because it most certainly won't if you go in the water. It's not like a dry suit, but it would most certainly, you know, to me, it seems like a middle ground there where it is going to help me, you know, because I've seen the videos in the past, and I differ on this whole, you know, you fall out in cold water, this is how you get back in your kayak. In my personal opinion, after serving on the Larimer County Dive Rescue Team for several years and doing some ice rescue, doing swift water, you come out of your kayak in cold water, the first thing you need to do is calm down. Second thing is get your butt to shore. Your kayak, your gear, that can all be replaced. Okay. If you have a chance to grab it and you're in a position that you can, you know, swim to some rocks or whatever, cool. But that should be the last, way down the list. You get yourself to shore and get out of that water. And then, start finding your dry bag, get back to your truck, figure out how to get out of that situation and get yourself, you know, warmed up. But it kind of, I just wanted to, bounce that off an experienced guy like yourself. I will be 99 and still learning. That's the way I view it. So I always like to, learn from you guys that have done this stuff before us.
You learn until you die. That's the thing. The day you know it all is the day that you're probably not breathing anymore.
Yeah, that's what I've always said. Is like the moment in fishing that I get to the point where I think I've got it all figured out is when I need to get out, because I've made a mistake there. For sure. So, last night I had a chance to interview Scott, and we talked about, membership for the CKFC. We talked about it's very easy.
Yep.
What advice would you give somebody if they're interested in checking out the club? What would be, some advice that you would give them?
Honestly, like I love the way I did it in 2018. I kind of just jumped into it.
Yep.
I talked with some of the guys a little bit, and there's varying things that you can do, but the biggest thing, go ahead and get into it. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to hurt your feelings because we're not that kind of group. We're not,
Yep.
Anybody that we'll rivet a couple of our guys, especially, some of our board members if they have a bad tournament.
Right.
But they know.
Well, and I think it's important to make point too, is that joining the club isn't about just fishing tournaments. You don't even have to fish a tournament. Join the club, be a part of a group that gives back, and the benefits, man, they're tenfold.
We've got several guys that I've yet to see at a tournament but they buy memberships every year for one of the series or the others, or sometimes both, as part of the charity piece. But then also you think about it, if you get a new fish finder and you want to deck it out with a Dakota lithium, to shed a little bit of weight out of your kayak, that discount that you're going to get is going to be more than what the membership costs.
More than pays for itself.
So if you want to upgrade a couple rods, if you want to get into some of that entry level, higher end graphite rods, the discount you're going to get on Cast King is going to be worth it. You start looking at some of those things, how those stack up. And even if you come to the club and you want to say, okay, I want to enter into my first one, we've got giveaways at the end that sometimes are well more than what the tournament entry costs.
Exactly.
So it just really depends. But the biggest thing about it is get out there, be social with the guys, go out there and learn. We've got people from every skill level that go out there in different tournaments and stuff. We've got people that, they might be an amazing walleye or trout angler, and they're just now, stepping a toe into the bass, because you never know what somebody's skill level is going to be out there in those tournaments. But that's one of the best parts about it. You get to the end of the tournament and, our top five typically, when we start saying what we were doing that day, I know, especially for myself and several of the other guys, we're not giving you, a bag of hot air at the end of the tournament. I'll tell you right now, I could go down to my garage and show you the little flicker shad that got absolutely torn up by pike and trout at 11 Mile.
Yep.
I could show you the Kitech easy shiners that I was using at Trinidad, and the VMC sickle hook jig heads that I was using them on.
You bet.
We like to share information. I'll tell you right now, Dave Kuzer, who's one of the old hats of the club, he's an amazing walleye angler, moved on to the bass world, was kicking our butts a lot. But they posted a post of his from several years ago about a type of walleye rig using a catfish slider that I had never seen. And I used that for the first time on Trinidad, and I won a multi-species tournament. It was my first tournament win in the club.
Wow.
And it's because of the information that they share here. Jason Duong has given away, not just gear that he gives away. He gave away a really nice, concealed carry bag that was full of lures during our end of year banquet, but also the knowledge that he shares.
Yep.
He's given away more knowledge than almost anybody that I could think of in fishing. If you ever need to know about jerk baits and stuff, Alex Rojas he'll give you lessons.
Yep.
Because they're those kind of people that are in this club. They feed on it. And we just enjoy sharing the knowledge of it and getting people out there on the water. And, no matter the skill level, no matter how much time you got in the kayak, a lot of us have spare kayaks and stuff. We'll get you out there. We'll get you fishing. We'll teach you, and we'll try to get you on fish, whether it be during a tournament or, even a lot of guys come out there during our tournaments that aren't members or aren't, actively in the tournament themselves. But we'll share the same information with a lot of them. We'll share, our knowledge of the club and give them advice and things like that. We just enjoy doing that and growing the sport.
And that's the whole piece on it. It's, you can join up, you can get a chance to gather the information, and we're talking a minimal club fee. Was it like $30 for the year or something like that?
It's $20 per series. And then the tournaments are $50. Gotcha.
And that's also the club entry fee, right?
Yes.
$20 per share. Okay. So you could join one of them just to pay to be a part of it, to join the club.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, that's super cool.
like the Facebook side of it is not members only. You don't have to be a member of one of the fishing series to be on the Facebook group. But then to get the discounts, to be part of the donation piece of it, and then to have the opportunity to fish the tournaments, you do have to buy into one of the series.
Yep.
But there's so much information available out there within our club. So it's definitely worth it, especially when you start looking at the work that Ronnie Romero did the last couple of years, and then Scott's already doing, this year to set up stuff. So you start entering those, and I mean, who knows? I mean, Tim Van Sickler won a, $5,000 plus kayak from Waterline this year.
That is crazy. So, Scott and I were talking about Waterline. That's an awesome deal.
You look at a sponsor like Waterline and what they've done for this club, that put us literally in the top echelon of kayak fishing clubs in this country.
Yep.
There are other clubs that have given away kayaks and stuff like that, and that literally put us in that. But I guarantee you, a lot of those other clubs aren't also donating $7,500 to Boys and Girls Club.
Exactly.
So there's something to be said about what CKFC does each year, between our anglers, between our sponsors, between just giving back to the community. You won't find that hardly anywhere else.
That's awesome. It is. It's a special place, special club, awesome people. You're right, 100% on it with Jason and Alex. When you're talking about them, I had the pleasure to fish with them, against them on the CKB side of things. Alex was up at Horsetooth for our first event. Jason was in several, one of our maybe a couple of our events. Always there to bounce information off of. It's my first year in Colorado waters has been, kind of driving the struggle bus, learning to downsize all my baits. The way I've described it is it's finesse or famine out here. And that's the weakest part of my game, is the finesse side. I'm a two-fisted approach. If it doesn't have 19 treble hooks on it, I'm not interested in slinging it. And so I'm learning the presentation piece and how that goes on. I'm excited about next year, the prospects there for sure.
And I'll tell you a secret too. Jason is not only an amazing angler, an amazing teacher for angling, but he's also a great weather vane. If you see Jason in closed-toed shoes at the beginning of our tournament, the weather's going to be bad. You might need to beef up what you're wearing. So if he's not in his flip-flops, that weather is not going to be good.
Gotcha. I'll pay attention to that from now on, the footwear of Mr. Jason. So I wanted to touch on briefly here, obviously, self-serving purpose here. You are a veteran. Actually, you're active duty military right now. You come from a line of that through your family. What has, or in your words, the getting involved in the outdoors, obviously specifically kayak, but anything. I've watched your Facebook stuff. You and your entire family engage the outdoors. It's a part of your lifestyle. I love following your posts, from that aspect out there. And just wanted to, it is something that's real close to home for us, being able to bring the outdoors to the community of veterans and first responders out there, because of the sneaky beneficial things that happen with it. Some people, I love to go fishing. You have no idea what it's doing for you, man. I didn't realize why, guys like you and I get bit with a bug, right? On the tournament side, where we take it to an extreme level. Obviously, we start buying a lot of tackle, a lot of gear and so forth. But at its primal piece, there's something that it does for us personally. And I wanted from you what your thoughts are on that.
So I'm going to go back to an event that happened in May. So I missed the John Martin tournament because I got COVID. I finally got released from, my self-isolation that the military tells me I need to do.
Right.
And it's coming up on a weekend, and I go down to Pueblo. I'm down there fishing, and I'm just trying to have fun, but I'm also doing the walleye monthly. And I'm sitting there, and there's a guy in a glitter boat next to me coming around the corner, and we hear a gunshot. An individual up on the shore, come to find out, had attempted to take his own life.
I remember this.
And the first thing we could think to do is rush over there. So we get over there, we're working things. I'm working the first aid piece, directing guys to go out towards the trail because we're a good ways off the trail. So we're trying to get the first responders out to us. I'm talking to 911 as I'm trying to keep this guy, alive, basically. And fishing is my safe space. That's where I go out to de-stress. That's where I go to get away from it. And this is what happened during that. But I tell you what, the first couple calls I was able to make, I did call my dad, but then also I called Mark Lehman, I called Jim Malcolm, guys from the club that I've met, to talk to them because, I knew I could talk to them. They're the guys that'll listen. There's a special group of people in this club that, I don't know how I'd have dealt with that situation without, because somebody just took away my self space.
Right.
And I tell you right now, I still, when I go out to Pueblo, this late in the season, I start hearing the guys shooting for duck season. I flinch. It's a hard thing to deal with, but I know I've got the guys in the club that I can talk to. I'm out there on the water. It calms me down a lot quicker. And there's just something so special about it. Like I said, you're getting to that kind of rudimentary nature of things, being out there on the water and outdoors. Yep. I'm taking my son rabbit hunting on Saturday.
Nice. Nice.
Getting him out there. He's 10 years old. He's had his own gun for quite a while that we've worked with on his gun safety. He's doing all of his hunter's education and everything.
Awesome.
I'm finally, hopefully, getting back to bow hunting. My wife calls me the world's most unlucky hunter. I've separated my shoulder while I was pulling back on a deer one time. I stoned my very first whitetail that I ever tried to shoot with my bow. I stoned right in the shoulder, and my broadhead went in a half an inch, and she knocked me off on a tree. But I'm getting back to it, and it's so great to see the excitement for my son to get out there. Getting my daughter out on the kayaks. My son's not as big of an angler, but my daughter, when Josh mentioned trying to go back and re-looking at doing a youth tournament, my daughter's like, I want to do it.
Yes.
So it's teaching that next generation those same skills that you learned from either your parents or a relative or even a friend of the family or even a stranger.
Right.
I've gone out and I've taught plenty of people different techniques and stuff like that. My neighbors were heading up to Rampart, and she was going to go up there with dough baits and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, I came and I grabbed a little KVD clown colored jerk bait. And I was like, hey, this is what you need to do. Helped her tie it on, showed her some different things. And she went up there and she's slaying trout next to all these people that are throwing eggs and dough bait. And she's like, I was the only one catching fish. I was like, that's because you're the only one that had something that the fish wasn't like, this is dangerous.
Yep, I've seen this before.
Something different, yeah. So, just sharing that information, talking about something that we're passionate about. Like I said, one of my first memories is fishing. So it's a passion for me. It's an addiction. So just getting out there is calming. It's relaxing. Even during the tournaments and stuff, I could get super stressed during a tournament. Guys have been around me when that's happened.
Yep.
But it washes away real quick.
Doesn't it?
In the moments, whether you have something amazing happening right after that, or if you just get to the shore and you're just like, man, I just got beat up during that tournament. But then it washes away faster than any other defeat that you'll ever have.
Yep.
There's something about it, especially when you start talking to guys about their day. If you got a friend that wins the tournament, dude, I had ACL surgery and Jim Malcolm went up there and won Horsetooth. Dude, that was phenomenal. I was one of the first ones that called him. I could not be happier for the guy. He's getting ready to move now with the military. But it's just the bonds that we've gotten to build and stuff through the club and through those kind of sports like fishing. There's just something special to it.
It is, and I found my love on the outdoors piece. If I had a bad tournament, this, mind you, I'm going a few years back. Actually, beginning of the season, I went through quite a deal here coming into the kayaks. I took a month, step back, got myself redialed back in, come back, felt phenomenal. But one of the things that I found out was if I had a bad tournament and had to do that walk of shame, where I got like 2 fish in the bag and I got to walk up to the scales, hang my head, dip my hat down just so my sponsors can be seen, not me. But one of the things that I found is I realized that one of the reasons I was so dejected and upset wasn't necessarily because of the performance. It was the fact that I had to get off the water now. It was over. Yep. All that work, everything that I'd put in, it was over. And so what I started doing, actually, in some cases, if I had a really bad tournament or something didn't go so right, I'd end up staying an extra day and I'd go out the following morning and I would have a drive back all of a sudden that was, okay, while I was out there fishing that next day, I was running through, oh, that makes sense. I should have did, this is where I made the mistake. And it just brought everything back together. And it wasn't until probably 2 years ago that I started actually researching into the recreational therapy side to what is this? What are you talking about?
Yep.
And started doing the research online and understanding, well, that makes total sense. That if individuals just working through a rough day, all the way to the point of anxiety, depression, PTSD, you name it, the benefits that comes out of engaging, doing what you and I love to do, man, it's huge. It's a massive impact. And what a great option as opposed to some of the other things that are available out there, that they try to throw towards gentlemen like yourself once you're out, of the deal. One of the best things I was taught, this word isn't a real word, but we use it anyway. They take about between 8 and 12 weeks to recruit you, and then 3 days pretty much to decruit you. Here's some numbers. Here's this. See you later. Take care. That sort of thing. And that to us is just broken. That's wrong. Especially when we're talking about guys that have been deployed, that have, seen the worst of the worst over there, or wherever. And so, yeah, it's, like I said, we're very thankful for you guys and your families. That was the other thing I've been taught, is your whole family serves at the same time. It's not just one person. So anything we can do, in those regards, engaging the outdoors, we're actually thinking about putting in, although I'm sure, I don't know, maybe this is some mountain biking, not really not trails up in the mountains, but just right. Colorado has so many trails, man, that is, like you said, it's so beautiful out there.
Yep.
And so we're actually considering, see if we can maybe find some partners that would help us with that for maybe 3-4 bikes at a time, type deal.
Well, and the nice part about it too, so I had a injury on the flight line that led to me having a major L5 S5, lower back injury.
Roger that.
Had surgery on it in 2014 and found out that, hey, I have issues leaning over. I used to mountain bike a good bit.
Oh, wow.
And now I can't lean over for more than 5-6 minutes on a normal bike. So I, talking to veterans organizations and stuff like that, I ended up getting one of the tadpole trikes based off recommendations from another veteran that had back issues. And I'm out all the time zooming around Banning Lewis Ranch. I absolutely love it. It's a great way to get out. And there's a company in Colorado Springs that sells those kind of trikes, and they modify them. So no matter if you've got amputations and stuff like that, they do a lot of modifications for veterans. They do several of them for free to be able to get them back out there.
Now, what is phenomenal. This trike? Is that the one that you sit like in a recumbent type style where you sit back?
Yeah, so it's got a normal kind of recumbent seat with the pedals out in front of you, but then it's got 2 wheels to the sides with joysticks, and then 1 wheel to the rear that's your drive wheel. And it's super comfortable. It's kind of low to the ground, so traffic here can be a little bit of a nightmare riding on the road.
Stay on the trails.
It's just really nice to be able to get out there, and it doesn't bother my back at all. It's great exercise, getting me ready for kayak season and things.
I was going to say it's real similar to the kayak position too.
But it's a wonderful opportunity, and like I said, it was a veterans organization that were the ones that kind of turned me on and said, hey, have you thought about doing this to get you back into that? And Very then that's cool. Also what got me back into shape, where my Hobie was runnable.
Heck yeah.
So it's just awesome having those kind of things and that kind of information out there for us.
Good stuff, man. Super good stuff. So to wrap this up here, 2023, you are the Bass Tournament Director. Is there any one of those events that, not for you personally, because you're going to go out there, you're a stick, man, so you're going to be battling on all of these, but is there any one of these events that sticks out more to you than another that you're really amped for, you're excited to see unfold for the club?
Pueblo in May, I think that's going to be an absolutely hot bite.
That's the one that I saw too. I'm like,
that's right as the temperatures are starting to really hit. There's something to that. And then also, not traditionally being from the multi-species and the rainbow trout side, but that September 11 mile, I'm partial. I did win this year. But dude, the pike were chewing, the trout were chewing. I had never caught a limit at 11 Mile before.
Wow.
And then moving it into September, I got to pre-fish just a little bit. But that bite at 11 Mile in September, even if you're just a bass guy, you're just maybe thinking about, dipping your toe into the multi-species side.
That's
That
the
was a
one to do.
42-inch pike. And a lot of trout were caught that were, 18, 19 inches. You're using a lot of bass tackle. Same with spinny. But honestly, that 11 Mile September tournament, even if you're just a hardcore bass angler, consider that one.
Absolutely.
That is a phenomenal bite, and it's beautiful out there. If you're fishing like the bass scene and you haven't made it out to 11 Mile Reservoir, that is one of the most beautiful lakes you will ever have the opportunity to put a kayak on. It is
Nice.
absolutely gorgeous with boulder fields, mountain views all around you, everything around. Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right. Got your home defense system. Awesome stuff, Jeremy. Listen, I can't thank you enough for taking the time with us here on this and for talking fishing, talking club stuff. Who knows? I mean, you and I were talking before this thing here, my challenges on the pedal side of things. But who knows? I mean, there's some things in the works that I can't just totally disclose just yet that just might help me in this regard where I can squeeze in a couple of those events there, because I absolutely would love to. One way or another, we'll find more ways that the True Patriot Outfitters can help support the club and do what we can, for sure. But yeah, man, we again, thank you to you and your entire family. Thank you for coming on the podcast with us here. And we'll have to start doing more of this if I ever get the courage to go live, which we just might. Anytime there's special announcements or special events like that, we'd be glad to try to be a vessel of communication for you out here.
Yeah, we'd love it. And thank you again for the support and having us on here to talk fishing, to talk the club, to talk, the things that we really love doing. Helping get a lot of the information and stuff out there. We love growing the club. Like I said, we're 4,500 strong on Facebook right now, constantly growing, but getting the right people in there, getting the information out to them, that's the biggest thing that we can ask for. So thank you for giving us the platform to share some info.
You bet, man. And that's like I said, that's what we're here to try to support in any way we can. It's a good mutual beneficial deal for everybody involved. So, well, awesome, man. Listen, looking forward to probably getting out there and having you kicking my butt and showing me some cool things on Colorado waters out here. So you be safe during the cold stuff, and I'm sure we'll hopefully be trading some pics here in the next month or so of some of the outings.
Awesome, Gene. Thank you so much. And again, have fun and stay safe out there as well.
Will do, brother. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.